I'm gonna tell you a little bit of a story that I'm not very happy about. I'm experiencing some problems. The water is just pushing up through like crazy.
Bad idea.
Go get it! So now I'm down here in the lower high tunnel and you can just see how much bigger the tomatoes are. They're actually starting to putting on suckers, which is this right here. And actually this one's a lot easier to show you because it's a lot bigger. And all these do is suck nutrients from the plant, and they're gonna make it really like bush out instead of going up, which is what we want it to do. So we'll go through here probably shortly after we get these staked and tied and pluck all these off, and that'll be in a later video. But for now, what I'm gonna do is grab my post pounder, which I have down there, and start putting these stakes in the ground. I think these stakes are around like 5 foot, and they're old, but we have marks on them, I think 12 inches. That way they're in the ground far enough so that way they don't tip over. But we need them high enough out of the ground, that way the tomatoes don't outgrow the stake, which would be horrible. Another major thing is that we get the stake in between the tomatoes, not only like half and half, but also like left and right or whatever you want to say, because then if it's not, you're going to be pulling that tomato with the string off to one side or the other, and it's going to harm or rub the tomato the wrong way. So that looks, and it doesn't have to be exactly perfect, but that's pretty good right there. I like to do one initial hit, get it into the ground, poke it through that plastic, and then, which I can't really see my line on this one, I'll start pounding it down in. I can see a dirt mark though. And I try and do it as straight as possible, and wow, this thing is hot. Alrighty, so that's it. All the posts are in, and they're about as straight as I can get. We like to make them, you know, look presentable. Got the end posts in, I think, pretty good. I want them to be the most solid because they're going to be handling the most weight. And now we're ready to tie. So Sammy had to leave, she'll be back in a little bit. I'm heading over now to the shed. Dad and I want to get the garlic fertilized before this rain. Supposedly we have like 1 to 2 inches of rain coming tomorrow, which is Friday. And so we want to, you know, get everything done in the fields that we need to before that happens. I'm sure some of you at home may be wondering why we are fertilizing the garlic. And we do that just to help it grow, help it get a little bit bigger, help it to size up. Because like when we plant it, there's fertilizer in the soil, because my dad makes rows with our corn planter. When he makes those rows, he puts fertilizer in the soil. Now when we plant, unlike peppers, there is no fertilizer water. We put them in the ground dry, and then they set their roots in the fall. Then, you know, they're there in the winter, and then they start out here in the spring, and now they're up probably like a foot, foot and a half. Now we'll fertilize them. It'll make them nice and green on the tops, but also blow that bulb up underneath. And then as long as we get a good amount of water, they should grow and get to the size that we want them to get to. One thing I am excited to say is that we have gotten comments in the past about selling our garlic after we get it dried, you know, like shipping it out to whatever state. I'll have it up on the website, and I'll make sure they're nice, beautiful bulbs, and, you know, I'll package them correctly, and I'll get them shipped out to you, because that is one thing that we can ship that's not gonna rot, you know, over the course of a day or two. And then once you get it home, if you get it into like a dark, cool place, it should last for months. Oh, maybe should do it outside.
Ain't it? Okay, I usually just roll it across the floor and it mixes. bad idea. That's what I did last year. What's that next? I don't remember which one it was. Right on.
One more row to go. There should be enough fertilizer in this bucket for me to fill my jug to the point where I need to. It actually looks like there's gonna be extra, but looks like there's gonna be a lot extra. Well, I won't say a lot extra. There's actually not even enough, which I mean a row's a lot, but there's not enough for another row, that's for sure. That's what we have left, right there. Which actually maybe I'll pour into here. Now you may be wondering why we're using sprinkling cans. And that's because we have found that with the cutoff spout, this is the easiest way to apply it. We want to put it right on the row, that way we're not fertilizing the weeds that are going around it. Garlic's done, now Sammy just showed back up and we're gonna go do the tomatoes. The sky is looking a little bit threatening, but really if it rains now it doesn't really matter because all our outside jobs are done. You can see how dark it's getting out that way. I might need to go put the Kubota in actually. Sammy said she wanted a hair tie, so I got it on Daisy's tail for her.
What did Daddy do to you? Come on, wait, no.
What is it? What is that? Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? Go get it, Dad! Alright, so Sammy and I just finished up 2 rows. They're the easiest right now because there's not a lot of like big, thick leaves. It's just basically running straight down and right back up. Probably takes us about 7 or 8 minutes a row, except for now because I'm kind of talking. But all we do is we'll tie this tomato twine, which we get from Nolt's Produce Supplies in Lancaster, around the stake, get a good knot, and then we'll run it right down one side of the post, and then we'll come back to the other, making, you know, a string on this side and a string on this side that holds up that tomato. She'll start on one side of the post, go around that side of the tomato, whatever side she comes off of the post, then she'll go in the center of the 2, cross over, and then she'll end up on the other side of the next post. And then, so basically she's weaving down through each tomato. And my job is to take this little pipe and go around each post and just basically guide the string for her. That way she don't have to try and pull string or fight with it in any way. We used to do whole fields of this, like 1,000-foot rows. Now we do like, I don't know, 30-foot rows, 40-foot rows, at least in here. The other one might be 75-foot rows, something like that. The only thing that you want to be careful of is that you don't pull the string too tight and suffocate the plant. You want to make it tight enough so it stabilizes the plant, but not too tight to where you're cutting into it and potentially injuring it. Like a general rule of thumb, you want to tie your tomato like every 4 or 5 inches. And I mean, we don't always do it perfectly, but we try to. So then we went to go wash our hands. The tomatoes are now tied. It's actually not going to be long. They're going to need to be tied again. I would say probably 3 or 4 days. But at least now when we have that door open and the wind blows through, it's not going to knock them over, which is a big plus. And so the next job will be staking the upper high tunnel, but it's going on like 5 o'clock and it's starting to rain. So I think we're going to call it a wrap. Okay, so it is Friday afternoon, just coming in here to the high tunnel, and I'm going to be staking all of these tomatoes. Not tying, just staking for tonight. And so just like the lower high tunnel, I got my post pounder. I'm probably gonna go through first just by hand and stick the posts in, and then I'll go through and pound them. That way I don't have to try and lift it up with one arm and then pound it with the other to get it started. Makes it a lot easier for me. But first off, I'm gonna tell you a little bit of a story that I'm not very happy about. And neither is my family, because actually it's more their money than mine. But anyway, a company that we have bought a couple pieces of equipment off of throughout the years is working on our water wheel planter. Now, this piece of equipment was not sold by them, but we took it to them because they have a fab shop and we wanted to get it done in the correct way. And what we're doing is we're getting a new water tank on it because the water tank that's on it now just isn't big enough, and especially when we're planting strawberries, we run out halfway through the field and then we have to bring a water tank out through and refill it. And so we took it down to this company and we explained to them exactly what we wanted done. They weren't real excited about doing it because it wasn't from them, but they said they can do it. It's not really gonna be an issue. And so a couple weeks go by and we haven't heard anything. And we get this phone call. Well, actually Dad got a phone call. And the owner of the company says, "Hey, Fran, we wanted to inform you that we rented out your water wheel planter. We didn't really think you were gonna mind. And the guy now wants to buy it." And so my dad, obviously pretty shocked at what he just heard, was like, "First of all, why did you rent out my planter when it wasn't yours to rent out? You're supposed to be working on it and fixing it." And he said, "Oh, well, I didn't think he would mind." And so obviously that's like the first red flag. And he said, "Oh, I didn't think he would mind. Also, I couldn't really remember your phone number. I didn't write it down, and so I just let him have it." And so my dad said, "Obviously, it's not for sale. We don't want to sell it. We don't want to buy a new piece of equipment, at least not now and not at this point. We just want ours back, and we want it in the same exact shape that we brought it in, if not better, because we always take such good care of our equipment." And so he said, "Okay, you know, blah, blah, blah." And so then a couple days go by, and this guy who rented it actually called my dad. He must have got the name from the company that was fixing it and said, "Hey, I want to buy it. Or if not, can I rent it again?" And so now that he's already rented it once, my dad kind of felt bad. And my dad was like, "I guess so." He's like, "Hey, just letting you know that we take really good care of our equipment and we want it back in the same shape." So now the guy rents the water wheel planter off of the company again. Really, we have nothing to do with it just by just giving our word, because we're not exactly accepting any money. And so now we get a call from the company and they say, "Hey, your water wheel planter is done." So because it's a rainy day and my dad had the time, he headed down today with my pap and they were picking it up along with doing a couple other errands, just getting supplies. And my dad gets there and he actually just called me on the phone because he's not home yet, and I heard this, he just told me the whole story. But he said that after looking at the water wheel planter, there was not only several parts that were broken on it from the guy who rented it, but it also was not washed up, wasn't cleaned, and we made sure we cleaned and scrubbed it before taking it down there. That way when they were working on it, they didn't have to do any of that. And so, first of all, parts broken. They had to weld stuff. There was a valve, I think, that was broken. My dad goes, "All right, well, what are you gonna give me for him renting this equipment. He rented it 2 days, maybe 3, I can't quite remember. And I don't know how much he planned with it, but the point was he rented it for 2 or 3 different days. Now, we just rented a Kubota tractor from Kubota, which is like 20 minutes from our farm. And it was $125 for a day, which I think was, I don't know if that was considered like 24 hours or what it was, but it was something of that sort. Now that's a tractor that has an engine, you know, and gas, all that, and fuel actually, and all that kind of stuff. But regardless, it's $125. And so we get down there, and so when Dad said, you know, how much you gonna give me for renting it out, and the owner of the company goes, well, we charge $20 a day, which I think is extremely low. I cannot imagine they would rent one of their pieces of equipment out for $20 a day and then $15 an acre. And he said he doubts that he used it for more than an acre. So he told Dad, I'll give you $50. And he goes, would that be okay with you, Fran? And my dad goes, well, no, but you know, what's he gonna do? Because he can't argue, it's done and it's over with. Like, what are you gonna do? And so Dad was like, all right, didn't want to make bad blood because we do business with this company. And so now here we are, and he's on his way home with it, and we need the planners, so there's nothing else we're gonna do. But it's just really crappy, the whole entire story. Like, that company should never have rented it out in the first place. Like, that wasn't theirs to rent out. We should have gotten more than $50, I feel, for it. I'm not saying we should have gotten $400, but I think if it was me, I would have rented something like that out for $50 a day. I would say we should have gotten at least between $100 and $200. And I'm not saying we should have got that cash, because we had to pay, I think, $800 to get this new water tank put on. So they should have just knocked that off the bill. And I just felt like we were kind of taken advantage of the entire way. And so basically we're just gonna eat the cost, eat the damages, and nothing we're gonna do about it. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think. I'm not saying we should have, you know, been given the whole water wheel planner for free after them doing all that labor. I'm not saying maybe we wouldn't have rented it to that guy even if he did call. Maybe Dad would have said, you know what, go ahead. But the whole point is we weren't asked. I don't think we were paid fairly for it. They never cared to wash after letting the guy use it. Like, just the whole thing was just bad. So I'm a little bit upset about it, but at the end of the day, nothing we're gonna do. And for anybody who knows, like us personally, whether it's, you know, just friends or people we do business with, we always try and take care. Oh boy. Huh. I thought that was gonna go through easier. We always try and, you know, take care of our customers. We're always good to our friends and family, you know, for the most part. And I just feel like for a customer that does business with that company for years and years, and spends thousands and thousands of dollars, we should have been treated a little more fair. And so anyway, I'm gonna put these stakes in just a couple inches just to hold them up straight, and then I can go through with the post pounder. I don't know why. It's like this fabric is thicker or something. I can't get it through. Okay, so I'm experiencing some problems. You can see how with all the rain we've been getting, it's coming up under here, and then when I poke my hole in the plastic, the water is just pushing up through like crazy. And so I stopped, not only because of that, but because when I'm pounding these stakes in, and unlike the lower high tunnel, the plastic is really like coming down with the stake. And so it's like really pulling the plastic or the fabric, and then it's kind of putting some strain on the tomatoes, which you can kind of see right here. You can see how it's like lifted up, and then it's like sitting right on that tomato. So I'm gonna pull these two back out, which I did this row and I didn't have much of an issue. But now for the rest of the rows, what I went and did was, and I'm actually still currently doing, cutting holes for the stake, just like I did for the tomatoes. I'm only making one line because that's big enough for the stake. But that way, when I put my stake in the ground, just like you see here, there is no pulling on the fabric. It just goes right down in easy. It's gonna take me a little more time, and I never had to do that before, but I am now, because if that plastic rubs on that tomato plant, especially on like a windy day, all day long, it's gonna kill it, and obviously that would be horrible. So I'll just make sure I go right in between the two tomatoes and just make a slit like 2-3 inches wide. So I got all the holes cut besides that row, and that's because that's the wettest. But even like these other 2 rows after that are still extremely muddy. Like you can even see my footprints coming through, like it's just soaking up through the fabric. And it's really just not worth just all this mud, all these footprints I'm putting in here. Like I can wait a couple days and it's gonna be just fine because they don't have to be tied yet anyway. I just wanted to get a job done. I thought that would be nice, but like I said, I'm just gonna wait. In 2 or 3 days, once this rain calms down, that should dry up and I can do it with no issues. So that's gonna be it for today.